if America is so bad that some people sell it as being so bad, why do people keep coming here? What is so like, okay, when we were in Iran, we had options. People were going to Spain. Some were going to Australia. Some were going to this. Only because they couldn't make it to America. But everybody's number one on the list was to come to America. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like they wanted to go anywhere else. Again, going back, that is my biggest argument, where if America is so bad, if capitalism is so bad and abusive, why do so many people who are actually leaving an abusive environment are willing to come to a place that offers capitalism?
PBD schooled Kyle Kulinski with facts. If America is so terrible, why do millions risk everything to come here? When a socialist meets an immigrant who actually fled oppression, the truth about America is impossible to deny. The left hates America because they've never known what real oppression looks like.
Tell me to dream on, hey, Patrick, you're 22 years old. I'm a regular guy. You know, my parents divorced. I don't have a lot of money. My dad's a cashier at a 99-cent store. I came from Iran. I lived at a refugee camp. I'm a regular guy. There's nothing about me that I'm coming with family money, any of this stuff. Sell me to dream. Hey, Patrick, you ought to one day, ... Sell me that dream. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, I think you should do whatever it is that you want to do. And I think you should be able to have a shot to do that fairly. So in other words, I don't think you should go bankrupt if you get medical bills. I don't think you should, have student loan debt that's so extensive that you can't ever pay it back. And by the way, you also can't file for bankruptcy on it because that's the way that they wrote the laws. I don't think people should be loaded up to the brim with credit card debt. Credit card debt is at a record high right now. I just read a stat the other day, 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So really, to sell you on the dream, I would honestly just point at some of the Scandinavian countries and say, look, they haven't eliminated capitalism. What they've done is they've harnessed the good parts of capitalism and mixed it in with the good parts of socialism so that they have, an intelligent hybrid where somebody who's 22 years old, just getting out of college, can have a chance to do whatever they want and make it.
So, okay, so and I rebuttal because let's just say there's a classmate sitting there and his dad's an executive at IBM, hypothetically, and he's doing $600,000 a year and he lives in a nice community. Yep. He says, so Kyle, if my dad's told me if these Scandinavian countries are so great, how come you're not moving there? And why is it that 40 million immigrants choose to come to America? And why don't they choose to go to some of these countries? What do you tell that 22-year-old smart aleck?
Well, why I'm not going there is because it's fucking cold. I'm in Miami, and I'm enjoying being in Miami right now.
So if it was warm, you would go, is what you're saying?
No, because I love my country. I love America. Whenever I criticize America, it's coming from a place of, I want to try to improve it and make it better. I don't think everything about this country is bad or wrong, but I think that there are things we can do to improve it. And, there's a very famous quote from one of the founding fathers, dissent is the highest form of patriotism.
What's going on, patriots? Sometimes the most revealing moments happen when two opposing worldviews collide head on. That's exactly what we witnessed in an eye-opening exchange between Patrick Bet David and left-wing commentator Kyle Kulinski. The contrast couldn't be more stark. One man who appreciates America's exceptional opportunity, having fled from actual oppression, versus someone who seems determined to tear down the very system that gives him the freedom to criticize it. Before we jump in, hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you haven't already. We're growing fast, and I appreciate each one of you joining our truth-seeking community. Let's start with something that really resonated with me from PBD's argument. Patrick asked a simple but profound question. If America is so terrible, why do millions of people risk everything to come here? As someone who escaped from Iran and lived in a refugee camp, PBD knows firsthand what actual oppression looks like. The immigrant perspective is something the American left consistently fails to understand.
God forbid, we saw one of our kids behind a dumpster smoking crack behind an Arby's. We'd be like, you know what? We're going to try to get them some help. We're going to try to get you in rehab. We're going to work on this. We're going to fix this. It's that same mindset that you apply to the country. It's, when you look at some of the things going on in this country, you say, this can't continue. I mean, we have 45,000 Americans that die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. That's something we can fix. And there's a lot of work put into convincing people that it's just a law of nature and there's nothing we can do about it. No, there's a lot we can do about it.
Okay, so let's stay on that. Hang on one second. I want to stay on this. So I want to go to the 22-year-old and selling the dream to this kid. So going back to it, I don't know who we had here on the podcast, but somebody recommends a restaurant to you. How do you and I judge a restaurant at noon? Like, let's say, hey, you know what? I've never been to Rifle before. Let's go there to eat for lunch. How do you and I judge a great restaurant?
How the food tastes, how the atmosphere is.
And then, okay, so the atmosphere meaning what? If the place is packed at noon and there's 100 people there and 20 people waiting to get inside, they're doing something right, okay? If you and I go to a restaurant at night and you're like, there's a restaurant in L.A., Rafi's Place, I go there all the time. If you go there on Mother's Day, it's a 3-hour wait, okay? Every day it's busy. It doesn't matter when you go there, right? If anybody says anything bad about the restaurant, like to say, well, you know, my thing is I want to make this restaurant better because I think this restaurant can do, if they put the chairs this way and it's not fair to the fact that the employees and the busboys and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, dude, but
it's a good restaurant.
But it's not a good restaurant because you and I have an opinion that's a good restaurant. It's a good restaurant because it's always flipping packed, right? So if America was, and I know this is a random analogy I'm using, but if America was a restaurant, America is so packed and it's got a waiting list that if it's so bad with the existing ideas that it has, why do so many people still want to come here and not anywhere else?
Well,
when you've lived under actual authoritarian regimes or socialist disasters, you develop a profound appreciation for American freedom and opportunity. PBD made this point brilliantly. Think about it. If capitalism is this evil system that Kyle portrays it to be, why aren't people fleeing America in droves? Why aren't refugees heading to these socialist utopias that Kyle praises? The answer is obvious to anyone willing to see the truth. America remains the greatest hope for freedom and prosperity on earth. PBD's point about Iran is particularly telling. When his family fled, they had options: Spain, Australia, other Western nations, but America was everyone's first choice. Not some Scandinavian social democracy, but America. The land of opportunity, meritocracy, and freedom. What the left fails to understand is that immigrants like Patrick don't come to America for government handouts or socialist safety nets. They come because America offers something far more valuable: the opportunity to chart your own destiny through hard work, determination, and personal responsibility.
There's a very simple answer to that question, which is if you look at the places that a lot of these people are fleeing, they've been absolutely obliterated. They've been destroyed. So a lot of these countries have been ravaged by the drug war, whether it's, I think in Honduras, I read a fact a couple years ago, in Honduras, there's more violence than there was in Iraq at the peak of the Iraq war. So
it's a pretty crazy place.
I'm going to try to flee that. Yeah. I don't know about you. I'm trying to flee that. I'm going to try to take care of my kids. Mexico, similar situation. You have these drug cartels. Effectively, with help from our policy, we've made these narco states, south of us.
Yeah.
And so you have these, gangster states that are run by drug cartels because what we've done is we did the war on drugs. We made it illegal. What happens when you make it illegal is it gets pushed underground to the black market. That's how you make the drug cartels more powerful. The same thing happened here with prohibition when it came to the mafia. We made the mafia way more powerful because we decided to make alcohol illegal. That's when they got their most power and wealth. And so a similar thing happened with the drug war. What I would do is, number one, stop intervening in those countries militarily. And that's, a long conversation we could have about the history of the U.S. intervening in that area. And number two, let's end the drug war. So in other words, just kind of take our boot off the neck of a lot of these countries and make it so that people want to stay there. Because honestly, I really believe this. I think a lot of the people who are coming here, if they felt like their home country was safe and clean and okay, then they wouldn't want to come here. I think in many cases it's a desperation type move.
But it's not just Honduras or Mexico. It's like okay, you're half Italian and you're half Polish. Is it Polish or?
Yeah. So I'm.
One of the most effective moments in this debate was PBD's restaurant analogy. It's common sense that completely eludes the American left. If a restaurant is packed every night with a 3-hour wait, what does that tell you? It tells you they are doing something right. The market has spoken. People vote with their feet and their wallets. America is that packed restaurant. For all its flaws and challenges, it remains the destination of choice for millions seeking a better life. The market of human migration has rendered its verdict, and America wins by a landslide. Kyle's response to this brilliant analogy was revealing. Instead of acknowledging this simple truth, he pivoted to blaming America for problems in Honduras and Mexico. According to Kyle, these countries are only failing because America somehow put its boot on their neck. This is the kind of America blaming that has become standard operating procedure for the progressive left. Let's be clear. America isn't perfect. We have problems to solve and improvements to make. But the difference between patriots like us and the woke left is that we criticize from a place of love. We want to make America even greater, while they seem to want to fundamentally transform it into something unrecognizable. Now let's talk about Kyle's clever rhetorical trick that's become all too common on the left. When pressed, he doesn't defend socialism outright. Instead, he rebrands it as social democracy, supposedly taking the best parts of capitalism and the best parts of socialism. This is intellectual dishonesty at its finest. It's like saying, let's take the best parts of health and the best parts of cancer. Socialism in any form is fundamentally at odds with the individual liberty that makes America exceptional. The countries Kyle admires, those Scandinavian nations he points to as models, are not what he portrays them to be. They're high-tax welfare states built on the foundation of market economies. And even those systems are showing serious cracks as demographics change and government promises become unsustainable. What Kyle and his ilk fail to mention is that these countries have been scaling back their welfare states for decades because they found them economically unsustainable. They don't mention that these countries have high degrees of economic freedom in many respects. They don't tell you about the cultural homogeneity and social cohesion that made these systems temporarily viable in small nations. Most importantly, they never acknowledge that America's unique strength comes from our commitment to individual liberty and limited government. Principles that are incompatible with the massive state intervention they advocate.
My mom's mom is from Italy, basically, and on my dad's side, it's more of a. My last name Kulinski is a Polish last name, but I think it's a little more confusing than that.
You got a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I got a little bit of everything.
I mean, even think you take your Italian, right? You take Jews. You take anything else. You take. If America is so bad that some people sell it as being so bad, why do people keep coming here? What is so like, okay, when we were in Iran, we had options. People were going into Spain. Some were going to Australia. Some were going to this. Only because they couldn't make it to America. But everybody's number one on the list was to come to America. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like they wanted to go anywhere else. Again, going back, that is my biggest argument where if America is so bad, if capitalism is so bad and abusive, why do so many people who are actually leaving an abusive environment are willing to come to a place that offers capitalism where a person who has not got the last name of Mitt Romney, his last name is Bet David, my parents haven't given me a penny. Last time I got an allowance, I was 14 years old. I'm not an allowance. I don't even know what allowance is, to be honest. I'm not even being sarcastic. I don't know what an allowance is, right? And so
one of the most frustrating moments in the debate was when Kyle suggested that countries like Honduras and Mexico are only struggling because of American intervention. This blame America first mentality has become a reflexive position for the left. Let's be real here. The problems in Latin America, corruption, cartel violence, weak institutions, are not America's fault. These nations have agency. They make their own choices, and many of their problems stem from embracing the very socialist policies that Kyle advocates. Venezuela was once the richest country in South America. Today, after 2 decades of socialism, people are eating out of garbage cans and fleeing by the millions. Is that America's fault too? The drug cartels that terrorize Mexico and Central America exist because there's demand for their products. That's a market reality. Yes, America has a drug problem, but blaming American policy for the choice of criminals to engage in violence is backward logic. What Kyle conveniently ignores is America's positive influence around the world. Our military presence has maintained global stability for decades. Our economic engagement has lifted millions out of poverty. Our values of freedom and democracy have inspired people everywhere. The truth is the world is better off because of American leadership, not in spite of it. And countries that embrace our values of free markets, individual liberty, and the rule of law consistently outperform those that don't. What we're really witnessing in this debate is something more profound than a policy disagreement. It's a fundamental difference in how we view America. For PBD and patriots like us, America is exceptional. Not perfect, but exceptional. We see a nation that has provided unprecedented freedom and opportunity, that has consistently overcome its flaws and failures to become more just and free. For Kyle and the woke left, America is fundamentally flawed, perhaps irredeemably so. They see our history as primarily a story of oppression rather than liberation, of injustice rather than progress toward justice. This matters because how we understand our past shapes how we approach our future. If you believe America is a force for good in the world, you'll work to preserve what makes it special while addressing its shortcomings. If you believe America is fundamentally broken, you'll seek to tear it down and rebuild it according to utopian ideologies that have failed everywhere they've been tried. The left's constant focus on America's flaws while minimizing its virtues is not, as Kyle claims, the highest form of patriotism. True patriotism comes from loving your country enough to fight for it, to defend its founding principles, and to ensure that the American dream remains alive for future generations.
I come up here, I'm like, dude, I don't give a shit if you give me allowance. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm going to bring my Middle Eastern work ethic, and I'm banking on something's good going to happen to me. I don't have the money to go to school. I don't have the grades to go to school. Maybe I'm going to go in the military, get my act together, be away from some of these guys that are doing drugs, because a lot of my friends were, ecstasy, pot. They were selling. They were doing I'm just got to get away from them. So I go into the military, and then I come out, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn I was a bodybuilder. I'm going to learn how to sell. This is my way out. So again, for me, it goes back to the same thing. If socialism or social democracy is so amazing, why don't people go to those countries first before they come here?
Well, so I would say, number one, there is a refugee crisis in a lot of those countries. There are people kind of pouring into those countries. But number two, I think we're talking a little bit past each other, because I wouldn't say America's bad. Of course I wouldn't. I'm here. I love this country, right? The question is, I think it's just the wrong conversation to have.
You're not a capitalism guy. You're not a support.
Well, social democracy harnesses the best aspects of capitalism. Okay. So there is an element.
So maybe unpack the difference between the two.
Sure. So there's socialism, there's democratic socialism, and there's social democracy. Social democracy is a hybrid of capitalism and socialism, where basically you take the best aspects of capitalism, the best aspects of socialism, and you have this mixed system.
There's another moment in this exchange that deserves attention. PBD mentions his Middle Eastern work ethic and his determination to succeed despite not having family wealth or connections. This is the real American dream, not government guarantees or socialist programs, but the opportunity to rise through your own merit and hard work. PBD embodies this dream, and his success is a testament to what makes America exceptional. The progressive vision that Kyle represents fundamentally misunderstands human nature. People don't thrive when government does everything for them. They thrive when they have the freedom to pursue their own path, to fail and learn, to succeed and build. Kyle's vision of America would turn us all into dependents of an ever-growing state, trading our liberty for security. But as our founders understood, those who make that trade end up with neither. The immigrant spirit that PBD represents is what has made America great from the beginning. Wave after wave of newcomers hungry for opportunity and willing to work for it have built this nation into the powerhouse it is today. That immigrant spirit is inherently at odds with a dependency culture that progressivism creates. It's no wonder that many first-generation Americans are among the strongest opponents of socialist policies. They know firsthand what they're fleeing from. Look around the world at the places where socialist ideas have been put into practice. Venezuela, once the richest country in South America, is now a humanitarian disaster. Cuba remains frozen in time, its people desperate to escape. North Korea is a prison camp masquerading as a country. Even the watered-down versions of socialism in Western Europe are showing serious strain. The welfare states are buckling under demographic pressure. Cultural cohesion is fracturing. Economic growth lags behind the United States. Canada, which Kyle's side often points to as a model, is experiencing serious problems with its healthcare system, housing affordability, and energy policy. Their progressive prime minister has embraced divisive identity politics that's tearing at the fabric of their society. As PBD pointedly said, it doesn't work. However you package it, rebrand it, or try to blend it with capitalism, Socialism fundamentally misaligns incentives and leads to economic stagnation and social decay. The failures of socialism aren't just theoretical. They're written in the suffering of millions throughout history. The left's persistent belief that real socialism hasn't been tried yet, or that this time will be different, ignores the consistent pattern of failure wherever these ideas are implemented. Kyle invoked the quote that dissent is the highest form of patriotism to justify his criticism of America. But there's a profound difference between patriotic dissent and the kind of fundamental hostility to American values that we see from much of the left today. Patriotic dissent comes from a place of love. It recognizes America's core goodness while working to help it live up to its ideals. The founding fathers dissented against specific British policies, not against the entire Western tradition of liberty and natural rights. What we're seeing on college campuses and in progressive politics today isn't patriotic dissent. It's a rejection of the very principles that make America exceptional: free speech, individual liberty, equality under the law, and the pursuit of happiness. The riots of 2020 that Kyle's ideological allies defended weren't about making America better. They were about tearing it down. The attacks on our founding fathers, our Constitution, and our history aren't aimed at perfecting our union. They're aimed at fundamentally transforming it into something our founders wouldn't recognize. Real patriotic dissent acknowledges that, for all its flaws, America remains the last best hope for freedom in this world. It criticizes specific policies or failures while affirming the goodness of the American experiment. So, where do we go from here? How do we respond to the Kyle Kulinskis of the world who seem determined to undermine what makes America exceptional? First, we need to unapologetically defend American values and the American dream. We need to tell the stories of people like Patrick Bet-David, who came here with nothing and built something remarkable through hard work and determination. Second, we need to challenge the false narratives about America that have infiltrated our education system, media, and culture. America isn't perfect, but it remains the greatest force for good in human history. Its founding ideals of liberty and equality, however imperfectly implemented at times, have inspired freedom movements around the world. Third, we need to offer real solutions to real problems without embracing the failed ideologies of socialism or statism. Yes, healthcare is too expensive. Yes, college costs too much. Yes, there are people struggling in our country, but the answer isn't more government control. It's more freedom, more competition, and more opportunity. Fourth, we need to recognize that America's strength comes from its people, not its government. The genius of the American system is that it limits government power precisely because it trusts in the wisdom, decency, and capability of ordinary citizens to govern their own lives. Finally, we need to stand firm against the divisive identity politics that the left uses to pit Americans against each other. We are not primarily members of racial, gender, or economic groups. We are Americans, united by shared values and a shared destiny. The debate between PBD and Kyle Kulinski represents more than just two men with different political views. It represents two fundamentally different visions of America. One vision sees America as exceptional, a beacon of hope and opportunity in a troubled world. A nation that, for all its flaws, continues to offer unparalleled freedom and possibility to its citizens and to millions who dream of becoming Americans. The other vision sees America as fundamentally flawed, perhaps irredeemably so. A nation defined by its worst moments rather than its highest aspirations. A system that needs to be torn down and rebuilt according to utopian ideologies that have failed everywhere they've been tried. Stand with Patrick, Bet-David, and with all those who recognize America's exceptional nature. I stand with the immigrants who risk everything to come here because they understand what the American left has forgotten. That for all its imperfections, America remains the last best hope for freedom on this earth. Thank you for joining me today on the Black Coffee Podcast. If you found value in this discussion, please like, subscribe, and share with friends who need to hear this message. Until next time, stay strong, stay free, and keep fighting for the America we love. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.